Marcus Chen's alarm pierced the pre-dawn silence at 5:30, the same digital chirp that had dragged him from sleep every morning for the past 3 years. He reached across the empty side of the bed, still reached, even now, before his hand found the smartwatch on the nightstand and silenced it. The apartment's climate control hadn't kicked in yet, and the November chill made him pull the blanket tighter for just one more moment before duty won over comfort. The kitchen counter told the story he didn't need to read anymore. 3 envelopes stamped "Final Notice" in aggressive red letters, stacked beside the ancient coffee maker that had survived Sarah's illness, the funeral, and everything after. The holographic frame on the shelf cycled through images of her: Sarah laughing at their wedding, Sarah holding newborn Lily, Sarah 2 weeks before the end when she could still smile. He'd tried to turn off that last photo, but Lily had found it in the deleted files and restored it. "We don't hide Mama," she'd said, and that had been the end of that discussion. Marcus filled the coffee maker manually, ignoring the smart brew function that required a subscription he'd cancelled 8 months ago. The neighborhood outside the window was still dark, but he could see the glow of ads projected onto the sides of buildings, luxury condos, neural enhancement clinics. The new holographic fashion line that Victoria wouldn't shut up about. Queens hadn't gentrified completely yet, but the signs were everywhere. The bodega on the corner had installed a retinal scanner last month. Mrs. Park upstairs had been evicted to make room for premium units. Lily's door was covered in her artwork, physical paper taped to the surface, rebelliously analog in a world that had moved past such things. He knocked gently, then pushed it open. She was already awake, sketching in the notebook he'd given her, the one with actual pages that she could touch. "Morning ritual?" he asked. Lily looked up, her dark eyes, Sarah's eyes, already alert. "What's our wealth?" "Each other, sweetheart. What's our power? Kindness." She smiled and went back to her drawing. Marcus watched her for a moment, trying to memorize this version of her before time took it away. 9 years old and already understanding things that grown adults couldn't grasp. Or wouldn't. He made breakfast while she got dressed: real eggs, real bread, the expensive kind that didn't come from a printer. It took longer and cost more, but some things mattered. Lily appeared in her school uniform, the one that identified her as a public school student in a city where private education came with neural implants and AI tutors embedded in designer contact lenses. "Brandon sent me another message last night," Lily said, poking at her eggs. About the party. Marcus's jaw tightened. Brandon was Nathan's son, 12 years old and already fluent in the language of casual cruelty. "What did he say? That I should borrow a dress from someone who can afford real fashion?" He used 3 laughing emojis. She said it matter-of-factly, but Marcus saw the tension in her small shoulders. "I told him I was making my own dress and that handmade is better than fabricated." "What did he say to that?" "He sent me a link to a charity that helps poor kids." She took a bite of eggs, chewing slowly. "I blocked him." Marcus wanted to reach through whatever social network 12-year-olds used now and shake his nephew until some decency fell out. Instead, he said, "Good. Anyone who can't recognize quality isn't worth your time." "That's what Mama would have said." "Your mama was usually right." They finished breakfast in comfortable silence, and Marcus walked her to the bus stop, ignoring the looks from parents loading their children into self-driving cars with tinted windows and climate-controlled interiors. Lily's bus was old, diesel-powered, covered in the grime of city streets. She kissed his cheek and bounded up the steps without shame, without apology, and Marcus felt something fierce and protective surge in his chest. Jefferson High School hadn't changed much in the 15 years he'd been teaching there, except to get more crowded and less funded. The holographic displays in the hallway flickered. Budget cuts meant they couldn't afford proper maintenance. Marcus's classroom was on the 3rd floor, past the metal detectors and the security drones that hummed in the corners, watching for weapons and recording everything for the district's AI behavioral analysis system. His art class was 4th period. and Jamal Wright was already waiting outside the door when Marcus arrived. 16, tall, with the kind of defensive posture that came from expecting disappointment. He had a portfolio case under his arm, the physical kind that artists used to carry before everything went digital. "Mr. Chen." Jamal's voice was carefully neutral. "Got a minute?" Marcus unlocked the classroom, and they stepped inside. The space was his small rebellion against the school's push toward full digitization, physical canvases, real paint, brushes that required cleaning. The smell of linseed oil and turpentine cut through the antiseptic school air. "I finished the piece," Jamal said, opening the portfolio. The one for the scholarship application. The painting was raw and honest, a portrait of Jamal's mother in her work uniform, exhausted but dignified, surrounded by the clutter of 3 jobs and a life that didn't leave room for rest. Marcus felt his throat tighten. "This is exceptional work, yeah?" Jamal's carefully maintained cool cracked slightly. "Good enough, better than good enough. This shows mastery of technique, but more importantly, it shows truth. That's what matters." Marcus pulled out his tablet, navigating to the scholarship portal. "Send it tonight. Don't wait, application fee is 200 credits, Marcus knew what that meant. 200 credits was groceries for a week, or the electric bill, or any of a dozen emergencies that people like Jamal's mother juggled constantly. He pulled out his own wallet, physical, worn leather that Sarah had given him, and counted out bills. "Real paper currency, increasingly rare but still accepted. Consider it an investment in your future," Marcus said, handing over the money. Jamal stared at the bills. "Mr. Chen, I can't." "Yes, you can. And you will. Because talent doesn't wait for perfect circumstances, and neither should you." Marcus met the kid's eyes. "I believe in you, Jamal." "Sometimes that has to be enough until you can believe in yourself." Jamal took the money, his hand shaking slightly. "I'll pay you back, you'll pay it forward." "There's a difference." The kid left, and Marcus sat at his desk, opening his tablet to check his bank balance. The number stared back at him, 147 credits remaining until his next paycheck in 2 weeks. The after-school care payment was due, and he'd just given away money he couldn't afford to lose. Principal Rodriguez appeared in the doorway, her expression already disapproving before she spoke. She was younger than Marcus, sharp-suited, the kind of administrator who saw students as data points and teachers as liabilities. "Chen, we need to talk about your supply requisitions." Marcus gestured to the canvases and paint supplies stacked in the corner. "I bought these myself, that's the problem. The district provides digital art licenses. You're undermining our vendor relationships by refusing to use approved materials. The district provides software that crashes every other day and requires internet bandwidth we don't have. These kids need to create with their hands. Not through a screen." Rodriguez's jaw tightened. "Your idealism is noted. It's also expensive and unsustainable. The superintendent is visiting next month, and I need you to demonstrate integration with our digital curriculum, or we'll need to discuss whether your teaching methods align with the school's educational mission." She left, and Marcus sat in the silence that followed, feeling the weight of threats that weren't really threats at all. Everything was always conditional, always one step away from collapse. Sarah used to tell him that integrity was expensive, and he was learning exactly how expensive. His tablet chimed, a message from the after-school care center. "Payment overdue. Please remit within 48 hours to maintain enrollment." He closed the notification without responding, because what was there to say? "I gave away grocery money to a student who needed it more." That would sound like an excuse, and Marcus Chen didn't make excuses. The school day passed in its usual rhythm: lectures, demonstrations, students who cared and students who didn't, the constant background hum of fluorescent lights and distant traffic. He ate lunch in his classroom, a sandwich from home while grading digital submissions on his tablet. Some of the work was good. Most was adequate. A few showed the spark that made this job worth the poverty it guaranteed. At 3:15, he packed his messenger bag, another anachronism in a world of neural uploads and cloud storage, and headed for the subway. The train was packed with bodies and the smell of too many people in too small a space. Advertisements scrolled across every surface, targeting him based on retinal scans and purchase history. Struggling to make ends meet? Neural enhancement loans available with flexible terms. He looked away, watching his reflection in the darkened window instead. Lily's school let out at 3:30, and he was there at 3:25, standing with the other parents who couldn't afford private pickup services. She emerged with her backpack and a smile that made everything else worthwhile. "Good day," he asked. "Jenny Park taught me how to code a basic algorithm during lunch. I made a program that generates random acts of kindness suggestions." "Of course you did." They walked toward the after-school care center, and Marcus felt the envelope in his pocket like a lead weight. Mrs. Huang was waiting at the front desk, her expression sympathetic but firm. "Mr. Chen, we need to discuss." "I know. I got the notice. I'll have it by Friday. I've already extended the grace period twice. The center has expenses, and I understand." "Friday." He said it with more confidence than he felt. Mrs. Huang handed Lily her homework packet, and they left, walking toward the bus stop instead of calling a car. Lily didn't complain, never complained, just held his hand and talked about her day, the algorithm, the book she was reading, the way Mr. Patterson's toupee had slipped during math class and nobody had said anything but everyone had noticed. Back in the apartment, Marcus helped Lily with homework while his tablet chimed periodically with messages he couldn't bring himself to check. Bills. Notices. The constant drumbeat of financial obligation. He made dinner, pasta with sauce from a jar, garlic bread from the freezer, and they ate while Lily told him about the party. "Grandmother's birthday is this weekend," she said, twirling spaghetti around her fork. "Brandon says it's going to be at the Plaza Hotel." "It is. He says there's a dress code." Formal attire, whatever that means. Marcus had been trying not to think about it, but there was no avoiding it now. The invitation had arrived 3 weeks ago, embossed on physical cardstock because his mother believed in the weight of tradition. Or maybe because she knew digital invitations could be easily deleted. "We'll figure something out," he said. "I found a dress at the consignment store on 42nd. It's 35 credits. I saved money from helping Mrs. Park with her groceries." Lily's voice was carefully casual, but Marcus heard the undercurrent. She was protecting him from the cost, trying to manage a problem that shouldn't be hers to manage. "Sweetheart, you don't have to, I like it. It's blue, like the one Mama wore in the pictures from your wedding. And it's perfect for twirling." Marcus felt his throat close up. 9 years old and already learning to navigate family shame with grace and strategy. He wanted to tell her that they didn't have to go, that they could skip it entirely, but Sarah's voice echoed in his memory. "Family shows up, Marcus. Even when it's hard." Especially when it's hard. That night, after Lily was asleep, Marcus lay in bed scrolling through his tablet, looking at his bank balance, the unpaid bills, the scholarship application deadline for Jamal that he'd just funded. The math didn't work. It never worked. But somehow, he kept making it work, kept finding ways to stretch nothing into something. His phone buzzed with an incoming call. Nathan, because of course it was Nathan. Marcus considered letting it go to voicemail, then answered. "Marcus." Nathan's voice had the particular quality of someone calling from a car with noise cancellation and climate control. "Just confirming you received Mother's invitation. We'll be there." "Good. Listen, Kristen and I have been discussing the situation, and we'd like to make an offer." Marcus waited, already knowing he wouldn't like what came next. "We'd like to pay for Lily's enrollment at Westbrook Academy." It's where Brandon and Sophia attend, excellent curriculum, neural integration, AI tutoring. Lily's school is fine, Marcus, be realistic. She's a bright kid, but public education is, no. Marcus kept his voice level, aware that Lily might be listening. Thank you for the offer, but no, you're letting pride interfere with her future. I'm teaching her that there are different kinds of wealth. You might want to try it sometime. Nathan's laugh was short and sharp. Right. The noble poverty routine. How's that working out for your bank account? How's your conscience working out for your sleep schedule? Silence stretched between them, filled with decades of resentment and diverging paths. Finally, Nathan said, "We're family, Marcus. I'm trying to help, then respect my decisions." That would actually help. Nathan disconnected without saying goodbye, and Marcus lay in the darkness, feeling the familiar weight of family expectations and family disappointment pressing down on his chest. His brother wasn't wrong, not entirely. Lily deserved every advantage, every opportunity. But she also deserved to understand that value wasn't measured in credits and neural implants, that character mattered more than status. He pulled up the photo album on his tablet, scrolling through pictures of Sarah. There was one from their wedding day. She wore a simple blue dress, no designer label, no holographic accessories, just fabric and love and certainty. They'd been poor then too, but it hadn't mattered because they'd had each other. "What would you do?" he whispered to the image. Sarah smiled back, frozen in time, unable to answer. The next 3 days passed in the usual pattern: teaching, parenting, juggling expenses, making choices about which bill to pay and which to defer. On Thursday evening, Marcus and Lily sat at the kitchen table with the consignment dress laid out between them. It was simple, blue, slightly too long. "We can hem it," Marcus said, threading a needle. Lily watched him work, her expression serious. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Always. Why don't Uncle Nathan and Aunt Victoria like us?" Marcus's hand stilled. He'd been dreading this question, hoping it might never come. "They like us. They just don't understand us." "That's not the same thing." "No, it's not." He resumed sewing, keeping his hands busy. "Your grandmother and grandfather, my parents, they disagreed about a lot of things. Grandfather believed that wealth was a tool to help others. Grandmother believed that wealth was a shield against the world. When grandfather died, grandmother chose the shield. Which one did you choose?" "I chose your mother." "And she chose the tool." Lily was quiet for a moment, processing. Then she said, "I choose the tool too." Marcus looked at his daughter, seeing Sarah in the set of her jaw, in the determination in her eyes. Then we're both very rich. They worked together, hemming the dress, adding small embroidered flowers along the neckline, a touch that transformed consignment into custom. Lily's stitches were uneven but enthusiastic, and Marcus didn't correct them. The imperfection made it real, made it theirs. Friday arrived with the party looming on Saturday. And Marcus went to the bank during his lunch break. He withdrew money from the emergency fund, the small account he'd promised himself he wouldn't touch, and paid Mrs. Huang for the after-school care. She took the credits without comment, but her expression was sympathetic. "I know it's hard," she said. "My husband and I struggled when our kids were young." "It gets easier." Marcus nodded, not believing her but appreciating the lie. That evening, he took his suit to the dry cleaner, the same suit he'd worn to Sarah's funeral, the only formal wear he owned. The woman behind the counter scanned the garment and quoted him a price that made him wince. "Can you have it ready by tomorrow morning?" "Rush fee applies." "I understand." He paid, watching his balance drop to double digits, and walked home through streets lit by neon advertisements and holographic billboards. The city pulsed with wealth and technology, with people living in penthouses that cost more per month than he made in a year. And somewhere in that glittering excess was his family, getting ready for a party at the Plaza Hotel, probably not thinking about him at all except to calculate how embarrassing his presence might be. Saturday morning arrived too quickly. Marcus picked up his suit, pressed and cleaned, smelling faintly of chemicals, and helped Lily into her dress. She looked beautiful, the blue fabric catching the light. The embroidered flowers adding a personal touch that no fabricator could replicate. "Ready?" he asked. Lily took a deep breath, straightened her shoulders, Sarah's posture, that same defiant grace, and nodded. Ready. They took the subway to Manhattan, then the bus to the Plaza Hotel. Marcus watched Lily's reflection in the window, saw her preparing herself for whatever came next. 9 years old and already armoring up for family politics. He wanted to protect her from this, but Sarah's voice reminded him, "They need to see what real wealth looks like, Marcus. Show them." The Plaza Hotel rose before them like a monument to excess, marble and gold and holographic displays that shifted and changed with AI-generated art that somehow managed to be expensive and soulless simultaneously. Luxury cars lined the entrance, self-driving vehicles with privacy glass and neural interface ports. Marcus and Lily approached on foot, past the valets who didn't even glance at them, through doors held open by staff who looked through them rather than at them. The ballroom was on the second floor, and Marcus could hear the party before he saw it, the carefully modulated conversation of people who measured their words as carefully as their investments. He took Lily's hand, and they walked through the entrance together. The room fell silent, just for a moment, just long enough for everyone to register their arrival. Nathan stood by the bar in a suit that cost more than Marcus made in 3 months, his wife Kristen beside him in a dress with holographic accents that shifted colors based on her mood. Victoria was near the windows, surrounded by her social media friends, all of them recording everything for content and engagement metrics, and in the center of it all, holding court like a queen at her own coronation, was grandmother Margaret, 80 years old and dressed in vintage Chanel with neural enhancement jewelry that glowed softly at her wrists and throat. She saw Marcus and Lily, and her expression didn't change, which was somehow worse than open disapproval. "Marcus," she said, not moving to greet them. "You came," not "I'm glad you came." Not welcome. Just acknowledgement of arrival, a fact to be noted and filed away. Lily ran forward to hug her grandmother, and Marcus watched Margaret stiffen, saw her eyes scan the homemade dress with its uneven stitches and handcrafted flowers. The judgment was immediate and silent, the kind that didn't need words to cut deep. Victoria's voice carried across the room, pitched loud enough to be heard but casual enough to maintain deniability. "Oh, Lily. Did you make that yourself? How resourceful." The word resourceful dripped with condescension, with the particular cruelty of the wealthy pretending to praise what they actually disdained. Brandon and Sophia, Nathan's children, sat at a corner table with neural tablets embedded in their forearms, barely looking up as Lily approached. Brandon's voice was bored. "We don't play kid games. We're an investment club. Maybe you should get a hobby that's actually valuable." Marcus felt Lily's hand tighten in his, felt the tremor of hurt that she was trying to hide. He wanted to sweep her up and leave, wanted to tell his entire family exactly what he thought of their values and their cruelty and their hollow definitions of success. But Sarah's voice whispered again, "Show them what real wealth looks like." So he smiled, squeezed Lily's hand twice, their secret signal for "I love you," and led her further into the room. Into the glittering heart of his family's small empire, carrying with him the secret that none of them suspected, that everything they'd built their identities around was about to shift, that the game had already changed, and that the uncle they'd forgotten existed was watching from the shadows, taking notes, and preparing to redistribute an empire based solely on who understood what wealth actually meant. The bartender's neural implant flickered blue as he mixed drinks without looking, his augmented reality overlay showing him recipes and guest preferences in real time. Marcus watched the technology work, feeling like an anthropologist observing a culture he'd deliberately chosen not to join. The champagne cost more per glass than his monthly grocery budget, and Nathan had ordered 3 without checking the price, because men like Nathan never checked prices. So, still finger painting with teenagers? Nathan swirled his drink, the ice cubes synthesized to never melt, never dilute, perfect and expensive and utterly soulless. What's that paying these days? 40? 45,000. Marcus took a sip of water, tap water, free, because he'd learned to navigate wealthy spaces by accepting only what cost nothing. The reward isn't in the paycheck, Nathan. Nathan's laugh was practiced, the kind developed for board meetings and country clubs. Right. The reward is in food stamps? He leaned closer, dropping his voice to the intimate register of family cruelty. Marcus, I made your salary and bonuses last month. When are you going to get serious about providing for that little girl? The words landed like surgical strikes, precise and designed to cut deep. Marcus felt his jaw tighten, felt the familiar heat of rage and shame mixing in his chest. Across the ballroom, Lily stood near the dessert table, watching him with those two observant eyes that missed nothing. Kristen materialized beside Nathan, her dress shifting colors based on her biorhythms, currently a cool blue that suggested calculated calm. She'd had work done, everyone at this level had work done, subtle enhancements that made her ageless and artificial. Beautiful in the way that expensive things were beautiful, without warmth or character. We've been discussing it, Marcus. Kristen's smile was sharp. We'd like to offer to pay for Lily's enrollment at Westbrook Academy. It's where Brandon and Sophia attend. Neural integration, AI tutoring, connections that will set her up for life. Lily's school is excellent, Marcus said, keeping his voice level. She's thriving. Nathan's expression shifted to something that might have been pity if it weren't so laced with contempt. Is she? Or are you just telling yourself that because you can't afford better? He paused, letting the words settle. We're thinking of petitioning for partial custody. Just to give her opportunities. You understand, Marcus's hand shook, actual physical trembling that he couldn't control. The threat wasn't veiled. Nathan had money for lawyers, for court battles, for expert witnesses who would testify that public schools and two-bedroom apartments weren't adequate for a child's development. The threat was real, and they both knew it. Think about it, Nathan said, clapping Marcus on the shoulder with false affection. We're family. We want what's best for Lily. Marcus walked away before he said something he'd regret, before his hands curled into fists, before the rage won. Lily appeared beside him instantly, slipping her hand into his. I heard. She whispered, I know, I don't want to live with them. You won't have to. He said it with more certainty than he felt, and Lily squeezed his hand twice, their signal. Before letting go, dinner was announced through an AI system that analyzed guest locations and optimal seating flow, herding them toward tables with algorithmic efficiency. Marcus and Lily found themselves at the family table, technically included but positioned at the far end, near the service entrance where the servers emerged with their trays and their carefully neutral expressions. Victoria held court at the center, her social media recording everything through microscopic drones that circled her head like a technological halo. She'd gained 50,000 followers since arriving at the party, her neural feed displaying engagement metrics in real time. Everything was content. Everything was performance. She stood as dessert arrived, tapping her glass with a spoon embedded with haptic feedback that made the sound carry perfectly through the room without being too loud. The drones repositioned, capturing her from flattering angles. To grandmother, Victoria said, her voice pitched for maximum emotional resonance, probably coached by an AI that analyzed viral speech patterns. Who taught us that success is the best revenge against mediocrity? Her eyes found Marcus across the table, held his gaze just long enough to make her meaning clear. Some of us listened. Some of us chose different paths. But family is family, even when they're challenged. The word challenged hung in the air, clinical and cruel. The room laughed, uncomfortable, awkward, but they laughed. Marcus felt every eye on him, felt the weight of their judgment and their pity. Lily's hand found his under the table, gripping tight, Derek, Victoria's fiancé, added his contribution, his portfolio manager wisdom delivered with the confidence of someone who'd never had to choose between paying rent and buying groceries. My AI financial advisor says teachers are basically economic non-contributors. Necessary, sure, but not exactly wealth generators. Marcus's hand tightened around his water glass, knuckles white, the cheap glass warm against his palm. He wanted to speak, wanted to defend himself, wanted to explain that wealth generation wasn't the only measure of a life well lived. But the words stuck in his throat, trapped behind years of family gatherings where his voice had been dismissed, ignored, talked over. Lily saw. She always saw. Her small hand squeezed his leg under the table, a reminder that at least one person in the world believed he mattered. The dinner stretched on, course after course of molecular gastronomy that tasted like science experiments, wine that cost more than his monthly salary, conversation that flowed around him like he was a rock in a stream. Present but irrelevant. Marcus ate mechanically, responding when spoken to, playing the role of the poor relation with practiced ease. After dessert, after the AI-generated thank you from the birthday girl that felt oddly impersonal despite being crafted specifically for this moment, Margaret found him near the windows. The city stretched out below, glittering and cold, a monument to wealth and technology and the relentless forward motion of progress that left people like Marcus behind. "Walk with me," Margaret said, not a request. They moved to a quieter corner, away from the drones and the recording devices, away from the performance of family unity. Margaret's enhancement jewelry glowed softly at her throat, medical monitoring. Neural connectivity, social status all wrapped into decorative technology. She looked younger than 80, moved with the confidence of someone who'd bought extra decades with money and medical intervention. "Marcus." Her voice was softer now, almost gentle, which somehow made what came next worse. "Your siblings are worried about you." "I'm worried. Sarah's been gone 3 years. When will you rejoin the living?" The casual cruelty of it, reducing his grief to a calendar date, as if mourning operated on a schedule that could be optimized and managed. Marcus felt something crack inside his chest, felt the careful composure he'd maintained all evening start to fracture. "I am living, Ma. I'm raising Lily. I'm teaching kids who need, you're hiding." Margaret's expression was steel wrapped in concern. "Your father wanted success for his children. Nathan and Victoria have provided that. You've provided sentiment. Dad wanted us to be good people. Your father died broke, Marcus." The words were precise, surgical. His goodness paid for nothing. His principles bought him a modest funeral and children who had to fight for everything they achieved. Nathan and Victoria learned from his mistakes. "You're still making them." She walked away, leaving Marcus standing alone by the window, the city lights blurring as tears pricked his eyes. This was the lowest point, not the mockery, not the threats, but his mother's casual dismissal of everything his father had believed, everything Marcus tried to live by. The suggestion that love and character and integrity were mistakes to be corrected rather than values to be honored. He excused himself, walking blindly toward the bathroom, needing just 5 minutes away from the performance, from the judgment, from the weight of family expectations crushing down on him. The bathroom was marble and gold, equipped with mood sensors and atmospheric controls that adjusted lighting and scent based on occupant stress levels. The system recognized his emotional state, dimming the lights, releasing calming pheromones that did nothing to stop the tears. Marcus gripped the edge of the sink, staring at his reflection in the smart mirror that offered skincare analysis and enhancement recommendations. He looked old, worn, defeated. His suit was clean but outdated, his shoes polished but cheap, his face showing every year of struggle and loss. The mirror suggested neural enhancement consultations, wrinkle reduction, hair restoration, a dozen ways to improve what wealth had already judged and found wanting. He splashed water on his face, cold and real, and forced himself to breathe. Lily needed him functional. Lily needed him strong. He could break down later, in private, in the apartment where nobody would see or judge or record his weakness for social media content. When he emerged, composed if not calm, he didn't know that someone had been watching his entire evening with meticulous attention. In a private corner booth that the waitstaff had been instructed to ignore, Wei-Chin sat with Diana Park, reviewing footage from the hidden cameras he'd had installed throughout the venue. "The siblings are performing exactly as predicted," Diana said, making notes on her tablet with quick, efficient strokes. "Marcus is the variable." Wei studied the screen showing Marcus returning to Lily, whispering something that made her giggle despite the evening's cruelty. His brother's son. His last hope that the Chen family understood anything beyond acquisition and status. "He's stronger than he looks," Diana observed, something shifting in her professional assessment. "Most men would have snapped by now, or he's broken already," Wei said quietly. "We'll see." Diana watched Marcus kneel to fix Lily's dress strap, watched the tenderness in the gesture, the way he made his daughter laugh even while carrying the weight of humiliation. Something in her expression changed, professional interest becoming something more personal. More dangerous, interesting, she murmured to herself. Marcus didn't hear her. He was focused on Lily, on making sure she was okay, on salvaging what remained of the evening. They returned to their table just as the main event began, not the birthday celebration, but the real performance that everyone had been waiting for. Mrs. Lin emerged from the service entrance carrying a tray of champagne, her hand trembling slightly, her movements suggesting someone new to the work, uncertain and nervous. Marcus noticed because he always noticed service workers, always made eye contact, always recognized the people that his family looked through as if they were furniture. The tray wobbled. Mrs. Lin's eyes widened. And then, as if in slow motion, she tripped over nothing, sending champagne and crystal exploding across the floor in a cascade of expensive destruction. The glasses shattered against Victoria's shoes, custom Louboutins with embedded LED displays, 3,000 credits of status symbols now dripping with champagne. Victoria's scream could have shattered the remaining glasses. "You stupid woman." Victoria's face contorted with rage, all her carefully maintained beauty twisting into something ugly and raw. "Do you know how much these cost?" "These are custom." Derek was already on his phone, neural interface glowing as he recorded everything for insurance claims and social media outrage. "I'm calling the manager." "This is completely unacceptable." Mrs. Lin dropped to her knees, her accent thick with fear. So sorry, so sorry. Please, I need this job." "I'm so sorry." Nathan appeared, drawn by the commotion, his expression disgusted. "Jesus Christ, they're hiring anyone now." "She can barely hold a tray," Kristen's voice dripped with contempt. "She probably doesn't even speak English. Why is she working here?" The room watched, dozens of guests, all recording, all observing, none intervening. This was content, after all. This was entertainment. The humiliation of the working class captured in high definition for engagement metrics and viral potential. Marcus moved. He didn't think about it, didn't calculate social consequences or family reputation. He simply moved, kneeling in his funeral suit, his only suit, helping Mrs. Lin pick up glass with his bare hands. The shards cut his palms, blood welling up and staining his fingers, but he didn't stop. "It's okay," he said in Mandarin, the language he'd taught himself to communicate with his students' immigrant parents. "Accidents happen." "Are you hurt?" Mrs. Lin looked at him with genuine surprise, her act momentarily forgotten. "Your hands." "The glass, I'll heal." "Are you okay?" The hotel manager rushed over, his neural implant flickering with stress signals, his attention focused entirely on Victoria's rage and the potential lawsuit. "I am so sorry, ma'am." "She's fired immediately." Marcus stood, blood dripping from his palms, his voice calm but carrying. "It was an accident." She stays, sir, your family isn't paying your salary. Marcus's voice rose, just enough to cut through the murmur of the crowd. It was an accident. She keeps her job, or I'll make sure every news outlet in the city knows the plaza fires immigrant workers over accidents while wealthy guests scream at them. He said it loud enough that phones started turning, recording, capturing this moment for a very different kind of viral content. The manager's calculation was visible: scandal versus placating one wealthy family. Scandal won. Of course, sir. Just an accident. Marcus turned back to Mrs. Lin, reading her name tag, meeting her eyes with respect that nobody else in the room had offered. Mrs. Lin, this wasn't your fault. In Mandarin, how long have you been in America? Mrs. Lin stayed in character, her voice wavering. 6 months. I'm bringing my grandson here. Working 3 jobs for his visa, Marcus pulled out his wallet, the worn leather that Sarah had given him a lifetime ago. Inside was 237 credits, everything he had until his next paycheck in 11 days. He pulled out 200 and pressed it into her hands along with his business card, his cell number written on the back in his own handwriting because he couldn't afford custom cards with embedded contact chips. For any expenses from today. And if you or your grandson need help, English practice, school forms, anything, call me. We take care of each other. Lily appeared beside him, and without any prompting, without any instruction, she unclasped the bracelet from her wrist, the one Marcus had made with her using Sarah's old beads, her favorite possession. She held it out to Mrs. Lin. My daddy says we're richest when we share. This is my favorite thing, so I want you to have it. Mrs. Lin's tears were real now, breaking through her performance, genuine emotion cracking the careful act. You are very kind, that's our superpower, Lily said simply. The room erupted. Victoria's voice carried over the chaos, oh my God. Marcus. You gave a stranger our grocery money. Nathan pushed through the crowd, his face red. This is exactly why you're broke. Throwing money at people who won't help themselves. Margaret's voice cut through, sharp and final. Marcus Chen, you are embarrassing this family. Marcus looked at his mother, at his siblings, at the room full of people who measured worth in credits and status and social media metrics. He felt the weight of their judgment, felt the familiar shame trying to creep in. Then he looked at Lily, at her fierce pride in him, at her absolute certainty that they'd done the right thing. Then I'm proud to embarrass you, he said quietly. He took Lily's hand, turned toward the exit, and felt something shift in the air, a tension, focus, a change in the room's energy that he couldn't identify. He didn't know that Diana Park was watching with something fierce and hungry in her eyes, didn't know that Wei Chen was recording everything with satisfaction, didn't know that his entire life was about to pivot on this single moment of choosing character over comfort. Marcus. Stay. The voice cut through the ballroom like a command, authoritative and unfamiliar. Marcus turned, and for the first time saw the elderly man in the corner booth, the one nobody had noticed, standing now with the kind of presence that came from decades of wielding power. But before Wei could continue, before the revelation could unfold, Diana Park intercepted Marcus near the coat check, moving with purpose and grace, her expensive perfume subtle and her eyes intelligent and assessing. That was quite a performance back there, she said. Marcus was exhausted, emotionally raw. His hands still bleeding from the glass. It wasn't a performance. It was basic human decency. You should try it. Diana's smile was slow, knowing, approving. You think I'm with them? She gestured toward his family with casual dismissal. Marcus took her in. The understated elegance, the confidence, the way she moved through this world of wealth like she owned it. Aren't you? You look like you belong here. Looks can be deceiving, Mr. Chen. She stepped closer, and Marcus felt the tension shift, felt something electric and dangerous in the air between them. I'm Diana Park. I've been watching you all evening. That's moderately creepy. Diana laughed, genuine and unexpected. Fair. Let me rephrase, I've been assigned to watch you. By someone who wanted to know if you're the man he hoped you'd be. Lady, I don't know what game you're playing, not a game. A test. Her voice dropped, intimate, her eyes holding his with intensity that made his breath catch. One you just passed spectacularly. Tell me, do you always give away money you don't have? How do you? I know you have 37 credits left. I know you're 2 months behind on after-school care. I know you sold your wife's jewelry last month to pay for Lily's dental work. She watched his shocked expression with satisfaction. And I know you're the best man in this room, which is exactly what my boss was hoping to discover. Your boss is about to change your life. Diana studied him with professional assessment becoming something more personal. The question is, can you handle it? Because I've watched a lot of men crumble under the weight of what he's about to offer you. Are you always this cryptic and vaguely threatening? Diana leaned in, close enough that Marcus could smell her perfume, could feel the heat of her body, could see the genuine interest in her eyes beneath the professional veneer. Only when I'm intrigued. And Mr. Chen, you very much intrigued me, Dad. Who's the pretty lady? Lily's voice broke the moment, and Diana's expression shifted, softening as she looked down at the girl who'd given away her favorite bracelet to a stranger. Someone who thinks your dad is extraordinary, Diana said. That's a rare superpower. He is. He's the best dad in the whole universe. Diana's eyes returned to Marcus, holding his gaze with promise and challenge. I'm starting to believe that. The moment crackled between them, Marcus exhausted and vulnerable, Diana confident and predatory in the best possible way, both of them aware of something shifting, something beginning that neither had anticipated. Before either could speak, Wei Chen's voice rang out again, commanding the room's attention. Family. I have an announcement. The ballroom fell silent. Wei Chen walked to the center of the room, his presence filling the space, his age and wealth and power evident in every measured step. The screens around the ballroom flickered to life. Displaying his business card with crystalline clarity, Chen Industries. Founder and CEO, Nathan's face went white as he frantically searched his neural interface. Marcus saw the moment comprehension hit, saw his brother's expression shift from confusion to shock to something that looked like panic. Victoria had frozen mid-recording, her drones hanging motionless as she processed what she was seeing. Wei began to speak, and Marcus listened with growing disbelief as his uncle, an uncle he didn't remember, didn't know existed, laid out a story of family observation, of testing, of watching from the shadows while his brother's children revealed their true characters. Every word was measured. Every revelation calculated for maximum impact. Marcus felt Lily's hand in his, felt Diana's presence beside him like a promise, felt the weight of his family's hatred and envy pressing down from all sides. His uncle was offering him something impossible, wealth beyond imagination, power he'd never sought, a life that seemed pulled from fiction rather than reality, and the only condition was that he had to remain himself, had to hold on to the values that had kept him poor and struggling and judged for his entire adult life. He had to resist the corruption that came with wealth, the temptation to become like them, while they watched and waited for him to fail. You can refuse, Wei said. His voice gentle now, almost kind. Continue your life as it is. I'll give everything to charity and you'll own nothing, Lily whispered beside him. Dad, will we have to move? I like our apartment. Marcus looked at his daughter, then at his family's envious faces, then at Diana who watched him with an intensity that made something in his chest tighten. The room waited, dozens of phones recording, social media feeds streaming live, everyone anticipating his answer. Can I think about it? He asked. You have until morning, Wei said. Diana, give him your number. Marcus, call her when you decide. The apartment's environmental sensors detected Marcus Chen's wakefulness at 3:47 in the morning and automatically adjusted the ambient lighting to a soft blue that was supposed to promote calm. It wasn't working. He sat at the kitchen table with Diana Park's business card centered precisely in front of him, a rectangle of smart paper that displayed her contact information in elegant holographic script when touched. He hadn't touched it in 20 minutes, but he couldn't stop staring at it either. The walls didn't feel like they were closing in from poverty anymore. Now they pressed inward with impossible possibility, with the weight of a decision that would reshape everything he understood about himself and his place in the world. 2.1 billion in assets. Controlling interest in Chin Industries. A partnership with a woman whose voice on the phone had made something long dormant stir in his chest. Lily appeared in the doorway wearing pajamas printed with constellations, her feet bare against the cold floor. Marcus's parental radar activated immediately. She should be asleep, she had school tomorrow, but the words died before he could speak them because her expression held something older than her 9 years should allow. Can't sleep either, she asked. Big thoughts, sweetheart. She padded across the floor and climbed into his lap, getting too big for it now, her legs dangling awkwardly. But Marcus held her anyway because some rituals mattered more than physical comfort. Her weight was real and grounding, a reminder of what actually mattered when everything else felt like it might dissolve into unreality. Are you scared? Lily asked, terrified, of being rich, of losing who we are. Of becoming like them. Marcus felt the words catch in his throat, felt the fear that had been circling since Wei Chen's announcement finally given voice. What if the money changes me? What if I turn into Nathan or Victoria, and you don't recognize me anymore? Lily was quiet for a long moment, her head resting against his chest, her breath warm through his shirt. When she spoke, her voice carried Sarah's cadence, that particular way his wife had of cutting through complexity to find the simple truth underneath. Mama used to say you could paint beauty on anything. Even ugly canvas. Lily shifted to look up at him. Her dark eyes serious. Maybe money is just ugly canvas, and you'll paint something beautiful on it. Marcus felt tears prick his eyes, felt his throat close with the particular grief of hearing his dead wife's wisdom channeled through their daughter. When did you get so wise? I have a good teacher. They sat together in the pre-dawn silence, and Marcus felt the decision crystallizing in his chest, felt the fear transforming into something that might have been determination or might have been desperation or might have been both. He kissed the top of Lily's head and helped her back to bed, tucking her in with the ritual they'd maintained since Sarah's death because consistency mattered when the world kept shifting underneath you. Back in the kitchen, Marcus picked up his phone, old model, cracked screen, another marker of his economic status, and pulled up Diana's number. His thumb hovered over the call button. 3:47 in the morning was an insane time to call anyone, especially someone you'd just met, especially someone who held your future in her perfectly manicured hands. He pressed call. Diana answered on the first ring, her voice alert and clear, no trace of sleep. You're up, so are you. I don't sleep when I'm thinking about someone. The flotation was immediate and shameless, and Marcus felt something in his chest respond to it, something that had been dormant for 3 years waking up with uncomfortable urgency. You don't even know me. I know you gave away your last 200 credits to a woman you'd never met. I know you speak Mandarin because you taught yourself to communicate with your students' immigrant parents. I know you haven't dated since your wife died because I ran a background check. That's wildly invasive. Diana's laugh was low and unapologetic. It's due diligence. And I know you're scared right now because genuine people fear corruption. Which is exactly why you're the right choice. Her voice shifted, becoming serious without losing its warmth. What if I become someone Lily doesn't recognize? That's what you're really asking. Marcus felt exposed, seen, the careful walls he'd built around his fear suddenly transparent. Yes, then I'll remind you who you are. That's part of my job now. Your job is to watch me. Diana's voice dropped, intimate and dangerous. My job is to protect Wei's legacy. But watching you, Marcus Chen, has become significantly more than a job. The silence that followed crackled with tension. With possibility, with the electricity of two people circling something neither had expected. Marcus gripped his phone tighter, aware that he was standing at a precipice, that whatever he said next would matter. Ms. Park, Diana. And for the record, I don't usually mix business with pleasure. But I've also never met a man who made me reconsider every professional boundary I've ever set. She paused, and Marcus could hear the smile in her voice. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone more pliable. Someone easier to manipulate. Someone who would fall over themselves with gratitude and not question anything. Another pause. Instead, I got someone who teaches art to teenagers and bleeds for strangers and looks at $2 billion like it might be poisoned. It might be, then we'll be the antidote together. Diana's voice carried absolute certainty, the kind that came from years of navigating corporate warfare and emerging victorious. I have a 9-year-old daughter and 37 credits in my bank account, Marcus said, feeling the need to ground this conversation in reality, to remind both of them of the absurdity of whatever was happening between them. By morning, you'll have $2.1 billion in assets. The daughter, however, warmth flooded Diana's voice, softening the edges, is the real treasure. She's extraordinary, Marcus. Like her father, this feels like a fever dream. Then let me be very clear, so you know it's real. Diana's voice dropped lower, professional veneer cracking to reveal something raw underneath. I'm going to help you build something remarkable with Way's company. And if you're willing, I'd like to explore what we might build together personally. No pressure, no timeline. But Marcus, I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since I watched you bleed for a stranger. Marcus felt his breath catch, felt desire and fear and hope tangling together in his chest. That's a unique turn-on, Diana laughed, genuine and surprised. I contain multitudes. Will you come to the office this morning? Wei wants to introduce you to the executive team. I have to teach first period. The silence that followed was sharp with surprise. You're going to keep teaching, it's who I am. Wei said I can't change that. God, you're going to be incredible. Diana's voice carried something that might have been admiration or might have been desire or might have been both. Marcus, I should tell you something. I've been engaged twice. Both times to men who looked perfect on paper, right schools, right families, right connections. Both times I called it off because they cared more about status than substance. So when I say you're different, understand what I'm saying. You're everything I've been looking for and couldn't find in my world. Marcus felt the weight of that confession, felt the vulnerability beneath Diana's confident exterior. I don't even know how to tie a tie properly. My apartment has water stains on the ceiling. I haven't been on a date in 4 years. I'm not your world, exactly. You're better. They talked until dawn broke over the city, until the environmental sensors registered increasing light levels and adjusted the apartment's opacity accordingly. They talked about Way's company, about Marcus's teaching, about Lily and Sarah and the particular loneliness of single parenthood. They talked about Diana's childhood and soul, about her parents' expectations and her own ambitions, about the corporate ladder she'd climbed and the emptiness she'd found at various rungs. When Marcus finally ended the call, agreeing to come to Chin Industries at noon after his morning class, the sun was painting the Queen's skyline in shades of amber and gold. He felt exhausted and energized, terrified and hopeful, like he'd just run a marathon toward a finish line he couldn't quite see. Jefferson High School smelled like industrial cleaner and teenage anxiety, familiar scents that grounded Marcus as he navigated the crowded hallways. Word had spread somehow. The incident at the plaza had gone viral, videos of him kneeling in broken glass circulating through social media with hashtags about kindness and class warfare. Students stared as he passed, their neural implants probably pulling up articles and speculation in real time. Principal Rodriguez intercepted him before he reached his classroom, her expression caught between disapproval and calculation. Chen, my office. Now, they walked in silence past the security drones and the flickering holographic displays, past classrooms where teachers struggled to maintain attention in a world where entertainment was algorithmically optimized and education couldn't compete. Rodriguez's office was small and cluttered, dominated by a smart desk that displayed her calendar and priorities in rotating holograms. "Is it true?" she asked without preamble. The Plaza incident. "Someone said you're connected to Chen Industries." Marcus considered lying, considered deflecting. Then decided truth was simpler. "It's complicated. I'm still processing. Your job here is safe. I'm not quitting." Marcus said it firmly, watching Rodriguez's expression shift from concern to confusion. "I might adjust my schedule, but I'm not leaving these kids." "You're serious?" "Completely." Rodriguez studied him for a long moment, her neural implant flickering as she accessed his employment record, his teaching evaluations, probably running some algorithm to predict his behavior. Whatever she found seemed to satisfy her because she nodded slowly. "Okay. But Chen, if this becomes a distraction, if it interferes with your classroom management, it won't." His fourth period art class was subdued when he entered. Students watching him with new attention, their casual dismissal replaced by curiosity. Jamal waited until the bell rang and the other students had left before approaching, his portfolio case clutched under one arm. "Mr. Chen." Jamal's voice was carefully neutral, but Marcus heard the anxiety underneath. "I heard something crazy. That you're like, rich now." Marcus set down the brushes he'd been organizing and turned to face his student fully. "Jamal, I'm the same person I was yesterday, but if it's true, you didn't forget us?" The vulnerability in the question cut deep, the fear that success meant abandonment, that improvement meant leaving people behind. "I will never forget who I am or where I come from." "That's a promise." Marcus held Jamal's gaze, willing the kid to believe him. "You submitted that scholarship application, used the money you gave me for the fee." "Heard back yesterday." Jamal's face split into a grin. "I'm a finalist. That's your talent, Jamal. Not my money. Your work, your vision, your dedication." They shared a moment of understanding, of mutual respect that transcended the teacher-student dynamic, and Marcus felt something settle in his chest. This mattered. These kids mattered. Whatever happened with Chen Industries, whatever billions landed in his account, this connection was real and valuable in ways that couldn't be quantified. The subway ride to Midtown was packed with morning commuters. Everyone plugged into their neural feeds, experiencing curated realities while their bodies swayed with the train's movement. Marcus stood pressed against the door, holding the overhead bar, very aware that he was wearing his blood-stained suit because Diana had told him to, because she'd said it told a better story than Armani ever could. Chen Industries occupied 40 floors of a glass tower that reflected the sky, that looked like it might dissolve into light and air if you stared too long. The lobby was all marble and holographic art, AI-generated displays that shifted and evolved based on viewer reactions. Marcus felt profoundly out of place, a public school teacher in a cheap suit surrounded by executives whose neural enhancements glowed at their temples and wrists. Diana waited near the elevators, and Marcus's breath caught despite himself. She wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than his monthly rent, her dark hair pulled back in a style that emphasized the elegant line of her neck. But it was her expression that held him, warm and knowing, professional armor in place but her eyes soft when they met his. "You wore it," she said, gesturing to his suit. "You told me to. I like a man who listens." The flotation was subtle but unmistakable, and Marcus felt heat rise in his face. Before he could respond, Diana's attention shifted, kneeling smoothly to Lily's level. "You must be Lily. Your dad told me you make the best friendship bracelets in New York." Lily's shyness evaporated instantly. "Did you like the one I gave Mrs. Lynn? I loved it so much. I asked her if I could commission one from you. Would you make me one?" Diana's voice carried genuine interest, no condescension, treating Lily like a fellow artist rather than a child. Really, really. And I pay fair prices for art. How does 50 credits sound? Marcus opened his mouth to protest. 50 credits for a friendship bracelet was absurd, but Diana stood and met his eyes, and he saw the challenge there, the unspoken message. A genuine piece of art from a talented artist? That's a bargain. Diana held his gaze, her voice dropping slightly. I don't undervalue quality work, Marcus. Ever. The subtext landed like a physical touch, and Marcus felt desire coil low in his gut, felt the careful distance he'd maintained around his emotions starting to crack. Diana saw it in his face, he knew she did, and her small smile confirmed it before she turned toward the elevators. All business again. The executive boardroom occupied the 42nd floor, floor-to-ceiling windows offering views of Manhattan that made Marcus feel like he was standing on top of the world. The conference table was smart glass, displaying holographic data that shifted and reorganized based on speaker focus. Around it sat 8 men in expensive suits, their neural enhancements glowing with various alerts and notifications, their expressions ranging from skeptical to hostile. Richard Palmer, the CFO, spoke first, his voice carrying the particular condescension of someone explaining obvious things to stupid people. Mr. Chen, with all due respect, you have no business experience. Chen Industries has 15,000 employees and operates in 47 countries. This isn't a high school classroom where everyone gets a gold star for trying. Marcus felt the dismissal like a slap, felt his inadequacy confirmed by someone who actually knew what they were talking about. But then he thought about Jamal. About the way genuine belief could transform a struggling student into a scholarship finalist. He thought about Lily, about teaching her that kindness was power. He thought about bleeding in broken glass while his family filmed it for social media. You're right, Marcus said quietly. I don't know your world. But I know people. I know what motivates them, what builds loyalty, what creates value that goes beyond quarterly earnings. That's universal. Palmer's laugh was short and sharp. With respect, that's naive. With respect, Richard. Diana's voice cut through like a knife, steel wrapped in silk. Marcus isn't here to know what you know. That's what you're paid for. He's here to provide vision and values. Or did you forget that's what a CEO actually does? The room's energy shifted, subtle power dynamics realigning as the executives absorbed Diana's defense of Marcus. The smart glass flickered, and Wei Chen's face appeared, broadcast from what was clearly a hospital room, his skin waxy but his eyes sharp. Gentlemen. Wei's voice was weak but commanding. You've built this company into what it is, and I'm grateful. But you've also forgotten why we built it, to innovate, to improve lives, to mean something beyond shareholder value. Marcus will remind you. Diana will ensure you listen. Palmer's jaw tightened. And if we don't, then Marcus will replace you. That's as right as controlling shareholder. Tension crackled through the room, invisible but tangible, corporate warfare conducted through careful words and calculated silences. Marcus felt the weight of their resentment, their fear of disruption, their contempt for his lack of experience. He could fire them all, he realized. With a single decision, he could end careers, destabilize lives, wield power like a weapon. The thought made him nauseous. I don't want to replace anyone, Marcus said, and meant it. I want to learn from you. You built something remarkable here, and I respect that. He paused, choosing his words carefully. But I also need to understand, are you working here for a paycheck, or because you believe in what we do? Silence, because I've spent 15 years teaching kids that everyone else gave up on. And I've learned that the minute you stop believing in the mission, you've already failed. So I'm asking, honestly, do you still believe in what Chen Industries stands for? The question landed differently than Marcus had expected. He watched the executives exchange glances, saw something shift in their expressions. Susan Wright, the COO of product development, leaned forward, her neural implant dimming as she focused fully on the conversation instead of her feeds. "I've been here 20 years, Wright said slowly. "I helped launch our education software division. We provide free learning tools to underfunded schools across 40 states. That program was going to be cut next quarter because it doesn't generate profit." Palmer's been pushing for it for months. Marcus felt something click into place. Does it work? Does it help kids? It changes lives. I have thousands of letters from teachers in rural districts, from students who wouldn't have access to quality education otherwise. Wright's voice carried passion that had probably been buried under quarterly reports and budget meetings. "But it's a $40 million annual investment with no return, then it stays." Marcus said it simply, watching Palmer's face redden. "Find the money somewhere else. That's $40 million, measured in one currency. The return is measured in different currency. Human capital, social impact, the kind of value that compounds over generations." Marcus met Palmer's gaze steadily. "Keep the program." "That's not a request." Diana was watching him with something fierce and hungry in her expression, her professional composure cracking to reveal genuine admiration. Wright was smiling for the first time since the meeting started. Even the hostile executives seemed to be recalculating, their algorithms adjusting to incorporate this new variable. "Mr. Chen," Wright said quietly, "I think I'm going to like working with you." The meeting continued for another hour, Marcus asking questions and taking notes while Diana navigated corporate politics with surgical precision. When it finally ended, when the executives filed out with various degrees of acceptance and resentment, Marcus found himself alone with Diana in the boardroom, the Manhattan skyline spreading out behind them like a promise. "You were perfect," Diana said, and the pride in her voice made Marcus's chest tighten. "I had no idea what I was doing. You led with your values. That's more than most CEOs ever manage." Diana stepped closer, close enough that Marcus could smell her perfume, could see the flecks of gold in her dark eyes. "You're going to transform this company. I can already see it happening, Diana." Marcus's voice came out rougher than intended. "I don't know how to do this. Any of this, then we'll figure it out together." She reached up, her fingers brushing his collar, adjusting it with an intimacy that felt both professional and deeply personal. "That's what partners do." The word hung between them, partners, loaded with implications both business and personal. Marcus felt the space shrinking, felt the magnetic pull of Diana's confidence and intelligence and the way she saw him not as he was but as he could become. Lily's voice echoed from the doorway, shattering the moment. "Dad. Miss Diana. They have a robot that makes hot chocolate." Diana stepped back smoothly, her professional mask sliding into place, but her eyes held Marcus's for one more beat. "Promising continuation, promising possibility. Then we should definitely investigate this robot. I take my hot chocolate very seriously." They spent the afternoon touring Chen Industries, Lily asking questions and Diana answering with genuine engagement, treating a 9-year-old's curiosity as worthy of respect. Marcus watched them together, his daughter and this woman who'd appeared in his life like a lightning strike, and felt something dangerous taking root in his chest, something that felt like hope mixed with desire mixed with the terrifying possibility of building something new from the ruins of his old life. That evening, back in their Queens apartment that suddenly felt smaller and shabbier after Chen Industries' gleaming headquarters, Marcus made dinner while Lily worked on Diana's commissioned bracelet with focused intensity. "Do you like her?" Lily asked without looking up from her work. Marcus considered lying, considered deflecting, then remembered that Lily had always been able to see through him. "Yes. I do." "Good. She likes you too." "I can tell, you're very observant. Mama always said I got that from you." Lily tied off a knot, held up the bracelet to examine it. "She also said you'd find someone who makes you smile again." "Miss Diana makes you smile," Marcus felt tears prick his eyes, felt grief and hope tangling together in a knot he couldn't untangle. Would that be okay with you? If I spent time with Diana? Lily set down the bracelet and came to him, wrapping her arms around his waist. Mama told me before she died that she wanted you to be happy. She said being sad forever wouldn't honor her, it would waste her. I want you to be happy, Dad. He held his daughter, feeling the permission she was granting, feeling Sarah's presence in her words. They ate dinner together, and Marcus told her about the boardroom meeting, about standing up to executives who thought he was unqualified, about keeping the education program running despite its cost. That's what Uncle Wei wanted, Lily said wisely. For you to make good choices with the money. I hope so, sweet pea. I really hope so. That night, alone in his room with the city humming outside his window, Marcus thought about transformation and identity, about the man he'd been and the man he was becoming. He thought about Diana's voice on the phone at 3 a.m, about the way she'd defended him in the boardroom, about the heat in her eyes when she'd adjusted his collar. His phone buzzed with a message from her. Today was extraordinary. You were extraordinary. Sleep well, Marcus Chen. Tomorrow we start building something remarkable. He stared at those words until they blurred, until exhaustion pulled him under, until dreams of possibility replaced the weight of impossible decisions. And somewhere in the darkest hour before dawn, Marcus Chen made peace with transformation, with the terrifying prospect of becoming someone new while staying fundamentally himself, with the radical idea that maybe, just maybe, he deserved this chance at a different kind of life.